Hello, hello. Welcome to Rope Break, a wrestling podcast. But today is not just a regular episode of Rope Break, a wrestling podcast. First of all, I would like to say hello and welcome to the people on Spotify and Apple Music. We are now on there. But today is a special one because today is July 7th, 2025. It is nWo Day, 29 years of the nWo, the New World Order. July 7th, 2025 is today, but July 7th, 1996 was the day that changed the wrestling world. In my opinion, the nWo is the most influential group and our faction, whatever you want to call it, ever created in professional wrestling. Truly believe that Hogan's heel turn made not only the WCW, but the WWF turn into something else that it wasn't. The Attitude Era wouldn't have happened if Hollywood Hulk Hogan wouldn't have happened, if the NWO wouldn't have happened, if Hall and Nash wouldn't have jumped ship. None of this, none of what we call wrestling, the bloodline, none of that would have happened. The dominance of the NWO set off a totally new direction of professional wrestling. When Hogan told the fans to stick it, the biggest babyface that was ever created and probably ever will be. I don't think John Cena can touch the heights of Hulkamania, considering this is last year. Um, you know, Hogan did it twice as a babyface and a heel. Cena's on this heel run right now. It's good, but it's not Hollywood Hogan good. But just a few highlights about the NWO. I'm not here to give a history lesson. When you're NWO, you're NWO for life. So if you're an NWOite, you know what's going on. You know, on on July 7th, right after that, when Hogan became Hollywood, he disrespected Mean Gene Okerlund, who was his buddy, Mean Gene. Let me tell you something, brother. Hall and Nash, who single-handedly created a new environment in professional wrestling with those guaranteed contracts that everybody has right now. Um, it's just crazy. DX had to respond to the NWO. Um, and I know some people say Shawn Michaels and Hunter Hearst Helmsley, they're running the game now. They're running the World Wrestling Federation, the WWE, the World Wrestling Entertainment. Yes, they are. Um, yeah, Hogan, as controversial as he is, and Bischoff, and rest in peace Scott Hall, and big ups to the big homie Big Kev. They are doing their own thing, and they're pretty much not in professional wrestling right now. But that doesn't mean that DX wouldn't be going off if the NWO wasn't the ones that set it up. And I'm even talking about the lackluster versions of the NWO as well. They still got caught traction. Whether it's the NWO 2000 or the Wolfpack. The Wolfpack hit another totally different culture. It more embraced the urban culture that the NWO brought in, the gang mentality, the gang, when gangs were cool, if they ever were. The NWO definitely made it cool. The spray painting, the more realistic view of wrestling, and that is something that you usually didn't see at that time. You didn't see it. You saw Duke the Dumpster Drosy was a garbage man. Bastion Booger, Bob Holly was a race car driver. I mean, it wasn't what people wanted to see by that time, and the new generation was definitely suffering. They had great talents, such as Shawn Michaels, such as Bret Hart, such as Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. There was all type of guys. Even Luger at one point, when he was a narcissist and then became All American. But when the NWO kicked in, and Luger had already jumped ship by then, but when the NWO kicked in, it was a totally different deal. When Hogan said, for the reception I got, you can't, fans can stick it, brother. That was something. It made people go back to watch wrestling that had stopped. that has completely stopped watching wrestling probably around, the early 90s, the WrestleMania 7 91 after the Mega Power Split in 89 and then 90 when the Warrior and Hogan had their match. Wrestling was it. It was pretty much cooked. WCW was looked at as a regional television show territory, probably the last big territory that was still going on. That's how people kind of viewed WCW, even though they had amazing matches. Rick Rude was down there putting on clinics, Ric Flair and Sting. Rest in peace, Rick Rude. We had so many great professional wrestling talents in WCW, but they never got showcased because WCW didn't have the big name. The big name was Hogan, and when Hogan turned heel, that made people want to watch. Just because Hogan turned heel, just because it was viewed as, hey, the WWF is taking over the WCW. It was amazing. The NWO lasted for so many years. It didn't end until completely end until the World Wrestling Federation, and I truly believe Vince wanted just to kill the NWO, because in his heart he knew that was the catalyst for the 83 weeks that happened when WCW dominated the ratings in profession. They dominated the ratings in general. It was only like football. That's the only thing. Football, NBA, the only thing that could beat wrestling. And Rodman picked wrestling over the NBA. It was far more fun hanging out with the NWO than it was hanging out with Michael Jordan at that time. Man, wrestling was a different thing. Wrestling was a different beast. Austin 316 wouldn't have happened if Hollywood wouldn't have happened. Um, things happen for a reason. Everything turned out the way it turned out, but we need to pay our respects to the NWO people, to the NWO. But just a few things. Let's run through some NWO highlights here. You know, the original NWO: Hollywood Hogan, Six, Sean Waltman, Hall, Nash, the Giant, and Ted DiBiase. That was the best, and Virgil. That was the best version of the NWO. Adding Eric Bischoff as the on-screen benefactor kind of made sense, but it kind of made Ted obsolete as well. So when Ted joined the Steiners, I wasn't too angry at that. But they should have just kept it mainstream. But we have to think about the popularity of the NWO in 2002 with No Way Out, NWO, No Way Out. When they made their return and came to the World Wrestling Federation, there was such a huge aura around them when they came in. First person people they're feuding with are Rock and Austin. Granted, we never got the match we truly wanted, which was Hogan Austin, but Rock and Austin, I can truly say to this day, one of the few matches, if I watch it right now, I still get a little tear in my eye. I was bawling as an 18-year-old man, brother, man, watching that match for the first time live. Um, and still to this day, like I said, get choked up. The NWO, Hogan himself actually was the catalyst. Cut Triple H, who was being booked as the man, as the top babyface in the World Wrestling Federation at the time, when he had his monumental comeback from when he tore his quad and he showed up at Madison Square Garden. It looked huge, looked amazing. Probably one of the best physiques I've ever seen in professional wrestling. He came out and he dominated that whole year. But the fact that Hogan was the man in the WWF, and honestly, I think he should have just maintained his heel status as Hollywood when he defeated Triple H, and it would have been better, I think, for the business, for everything. But instead, they did babyface versus babyface respect. Same thing he did with The Rock the month before WrestleMania, which also kind of didn't make sense why he got the title shot. But anyway, it is what it is. But man, we have to think about this. The NWO, the New World Order, still sells T-shirts, merchandise. It's 29 years later, folks, and we still want to relive the magic of the New World Order. I don't think DX gets sales like that. I don't think the Horsemen. I don't think the Evolution. The Bloodline's kind of new, but you're just getting Roman Reigns. Are you getting Jey Uso shirts because you want to yeet? It isn't about anything else. This is for life. This is forever. This changed wrestling in every way. This is a short one. We'll be back with our normal stuff, but this is the NWO special. Happy NWO Day. NWO is too sweet. And when you're NWO, NWOites, we know we're NWO for life. This is Alex representing Rope Break, a wrestling podcast. Peace. Too sweet.